Today we're going to talk about discourse markers. First of all, what are discourse markers? Well, they are words or phrases which are there to help the reader in an essay or a report, for example, or the listener if it's a presentation or a formal conversation, know or understand what the speaker or writer is about to convey. So some examples of discourse markers are words or phrases like firstly, secondly, next, then, for example, such as, therefore, moreover, consequently, to conclude, and so on. As you can see, there are many. Sometimes discourse markers are also called signpost language, and this is because they signpost to the reader or the listener what information is about to come up in the presentation or the essay. So think about Google or Baidu Maps. We use phrases like in 1 mile, turn right. And this allows the driver, for example, to plan their route ahead. So this allows the driver to know that shortly a right turn is coming up, so I need to position my car in the road and I need to put my indicator on. And this is a very similar situation for when we are giving formal academic content, as I said, whether that be in writing or speaking. So what we want to do is we want to make it so that the person who is reading our essay or listening to our presentation can predict what they are about to hear. So if I say, for example, you know that I'm about to give you an example, right? If I say consequently, you know that I'm going to give you an effect from a cause and effect type situation. So let's have a look at discourse markers in slightly more detail. So as I said, we use discourse markers to help the reader or the listener plan their route. If we hear a word like firstly, which is incidentally a discourse marker, we know that this firstly means that the speaker or writer is going to give us a list of different bits of information, and firstly is the first item that's on that list, or the first bit of information. We can then predict that we're likely to hear similar sequential discourse markers. So secondly, for the second thing that's on the list, and then we might hear then as the list goes on. Now, very importantly, we then hear a discourse marker like finally. And finally is really important because it lets us know that that is the last point on that list. And we know that the speaker or the writer is going to give us some different information from there, or they're going to come to the end of their written work or their presentation. So this leads us on to another discourse marker, and this one is probably very familiar to you. This is, of course, the concluding discourse markers. So we could say at the end of our presentation, for example, to conclude, or to summarize today's presentation. You can probably think of a much more common discourse marker, which is a phrase, to give as a conclusion or to start a conclusion. I'll give you a quick second to think of it. It is, of course, in conclusion. In conclusion. What we never want to do is come to the end of our presentation or essay and say, that's it. That's me. Thank you very much. No, we need to use more formal and cohesive devices and say things like in conclusion. So you will find in the exam prep folder a document that's called Discourse Markers Presentations. What I would like you to do is I would like you to have a look at those discourse markers and think how you can use those both in your presentation and in your essay to help the reader and the listener know what you are about to say.